So before you win, these are basic things you have to do. And Heidi, you are in your industry, but you've been in that industry for a while. You would do this one time because there's a lot of opportunity for you. Some of the federal opportunities are just maybe 1 year, or maybe it's just one time, it's a product for one time. But a lot of the federal opportunities are 1 year, 4 years, and mostly 5 years. Once you start winning, once you win that first contract, this is the big mistake that a lot of my 8As used to make. And I would tell them ahead of time, I know you got a $4 million contract coming up. I know you're winning. I know you're about to win that. That might be their first contract. You know what they do? And I'm not trying to force people to grow faster than they can manage. I'm not saying that. But what they do is they win that $4 million contracts, but you have 10 employees. That's only $1 million a year. You need another contract. You need more contracts. This is why you need a vision for your life. And I say your life first because your business comes with your life. But if you ain't got a plan for your life, you're always going to be nickel and diming yourself to death. You don't have to have it perfect. You just need to start thinking different because you get what you think about. You get what you focus on. You focus on small, you get small. You focus on petty people, you get petty stuff. So I don't just, I've been a business developer for a long time. I used to volunteer even when I didn't know what I was doing. Even before I was doing government contracts, I used to volunteer and help people with their business because I was always, even while I was in corporate, an entrepreneur. But I learned big business from corporate and I incorporate that into my mindset and it works. I feel very entitled because I know the system and I know nobody can stop me from getting as long as I do the work. And nobody can tell me what I cannot have as long as I can figure it out. But I don't want to get a pass. I want to be good at what I'm doing. I want to be a real winner, not a fake winner. So the things that we have to do are these 5 steps. Now, some of them will turn into only 3 steps after you learn how to do this, especially if you have an industry that you know and that you see you can make a lot of money in. So I was saying this to Heidi, who's on screen with me. She has an industry that she's been working in. She likes it. Maybe she's doing well in this industry, which she is. I believe if you find that industry, start there. If you like it, start there. So what we would do with this example, just like Heidi would do, is we would find out who our buyers are. How do we do that? Those of you that were with me, your codes are a big deal. This PSC code, your product service codes, huge deal. Nobody tells you to use that code. You may not even know what it is. Product service codes are owned by the federal government. They're the only ones that use them. Everybody else uses NAICS codes. Now you should have your NAICS codes too, but these are independent of each other. So when you don't have your right NAICS codes, and I'll tell you a little bit about NAICS codes. When you don't have your right NAICS codes, you're not going to find the opportunities because NAICS codes are higher level and they are commercial codes. The government does not own NAICS codes. They own PSC codes. So what I found many years ago was when I started doing and using NAICS codes and teaching my people, my business students to use PSC codes, we found more opportunities because they are named and categorized properly. NAICS codes, I'm not saying they're always wrong, but a lot of times they are. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you don't use them? No, you use them. So if I'm looking for audiovisual contracts, I want to find both. I want to find NAICS codes, I want to find PSC codes, and I want to find keywords because these things connect me to the buyer. It's as simple as that. It's not that difficult. Nobody teaches this like I do because people don't know. Not because they don't want to share. Sometimes they just don't know. I study this stuff for years and this is how people win. But it started to make basic common sense to me when, especially even before I started winning. I would look at the behaviors of the contracting officers. I would match things up and say, that's why it's easier to win with the PSC codes, because you're finding more opportunities. Because government contracting is planting seeds, at least on a federal level. It's planting seeds. The more seeds you plant, the faster the opportunities come, the more consistent they are. That's how it works. It's a simple numbers game. Of course, you have to know what to do in between there, but it's a numbers game. That's how we do it on the product side. That's why those people win so fast. Except on the product side, what happens is the government tells us everything we need. We don't even have to go figure it out. They're telling us what they need. They're telling us what they need to buy. To me, they are the easiest client in the world, to me. All you got to do is basically follow them, track what they're doing, be in their face when they ask for something. They say, Michelle, can you sell me, 15,000 paper bags? Sure, I'll try. I can try to find it. But instead of me trying to talk to them before I find the bags, I look at what they're asking for. I look at the scope of work. And then I say, let me go find these bags. And then I'm going to respond to him. I'm going to make him an offer. How do I make him an offer? I just bid. And every time he does something, or every time the group of contracting officers that are with him, because they come in groups too. I learned that too. Usually it's 2 or 3 of them. They all do the same thing, or they all have the same categories. And then every time the 3 of them, or the 2 of them, or the 5 of them put something out there in your category, you respond to it, whether it's a sources sought, whether it's an actual bid, or whether they send something to you. This is why your codes are important, because how are they going to find you? Because you're going to find out what their codes are. You're going to put their codes in SAM, and then they're going to find you. Now, do they look for us as often as they should? No, they do not. But are they required to? Yes, they are. But I tell people, listen, we have to decide what's important to fight about. The law says they're supposed to look for us. They're not going to do it. They don't have time. They don't do it until they're having an urgent situation, until their bosses say, I want a woman to do this project. Find one. Then they go looking for us, which is fine. But guess what? If you're showing up as a woman, they're like, wow, Michelle is a woman. She's Black. I get some check marks for that. So you know what? Even if I don't award her this contract, if she keeps getting in my face, I'm going to give her something. I'm going to award her something. I don't teach you how to be a sub. I'm not going to kid you about that. I don't. But I teach you how to be a contractor, a prime, a federal prime, which you guys, some of you do it at the state level, some of you don't. But you introduce yourself by responding to what they ask for. People get used to, not my people anymore, because I've told them, stop sending a capability statement when they didn't ask for one. They're not going to read it. You know when they're going to read it? When they ask for sources sought. That's how you introduce yourself. It works. And then they call you. They don't always call. A lot of federal contractors don't like to talk on the phone, but it's okay because they will communicate with you via email. And I will say this to you before I forget, when you guys start doing this, don't use your Gmail. I love my Gmail too, because it's easier to use, but always use your business email. Everything is about image and professionalism. Don't use your Gmail. There are people out there, they're not with me, but because I tell people don't do that. Because here's the thing, they don't know you yet. People judge you by what they see on paper. A lot of them won't even go look at your website, which is another thing. Some people thought, well, I thought I wasn't winning because I don't have a capability statement, or I don't have a websites and capability statements do not win you contracts. Submitting an offer and responding to the contracting officer is what wins. Their job is to buy something. They want to buy something, you want to sell something. So if you show up when they need to buy something, that's how you get in front of them, and that's how you win. Okay, so step 1 is that, but your codes is where you start, and we'll demonstrate a little bit of that because I want to show you with audio visual. Step 2 is then after you find these buyers, you can choose contracts. Sometimes I cut everybody off and I just go in the black hole and I don't come out until those bids are done. Because I have to show up as one of the best. So we have to do this stuff that I'm teaching you. So we choose the contracts. I do that. And I present them to my team and I tell them, this is what I think we should focus on. This is where we are. And they agree with me most of the time because that's my job. But do they always agree with me about how to do it? No, my vice president doesn't. And I love it because he has a different mindset. My COO does it. But you know what? That's her job. So she and I don't always see things the same, and that's good because she helps me to do the financials, and then we present it to our finance person. You will find things that attach to what you do. So if you're an audio visual, you have to think about subcontractors in different areas and farming that out. All you have to do is manage it. But what if you don't have any past performance experience? Maybe if you don't have that past performance experience, you could still win very easily, depending on what the criteria is. But there's less criteria on past performance than anything. That's another myth that people say, oh, you got to have, even some of the contracting officers say that to people. It's not true. They don't even know how we do what we do. All they know is their side. It's not true. You don't have to have past performance, and you don't even have to have a commercial business, to be honest. You can learn how to do these things, or you can hire subcontractors, but you are still the prime and you are still in charge and you are still responsible. Okay, so you choose the contracts you want to work with, and I teach you how to do that. So then step 3 is building your business model. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, it sounds bigger than what it is. Now, in my case, it is pretty big. In some of your cases, it will be pretty big. Maybe you offer a service where maybe you need to include logistics. You got to figure that out before you bid. And do you have enough time? That's part of the hit list. When is this due? It's due, oh my God, it's due in 2 weeks. Do I have enough time? Or, oh my God, it's due in 2 days. Do I have enough time? You need to, especially in the beginning, give yourself enough time. This is why you have to create a template so that you can submit faster. And everything is basically the same. Meaning sometimes it's these little details that take you a long time. You should have a description of your business, like a short paragraph introducing you. They might not ask for it, but I'm telling you, you should put it in there. You should have a capability statement if you feel like you need one. Now, you don't need one most of the time, unless it's a sources sought, and I'll show you the difference. But it's nice to have. It's like a business card. It's like a 8x11 business card, and it needs to be nice, professional, succinct, so that when they look at it, when you submit or respond to respond to their, this is not a solicitation, so you're not making an offer, but you kind of are, you're making a pre-offer with the sources sought. You should have that capability statement where you can just attach that to the other questions that they asked you and submit it so that they can say, oh, they do all of these things. But it shouldn't be all over the place. I have 3 different capability statements because I don't want them thinking about one thing when I'm trying to get them to focus on the fact that I can do something else. Because that's how these people are. You have to manage how they think about you without telling them. There are things that you do that makes yourself stand out. Some people just put a package together. They don't have a business model thought process. They just throw it together. Oh yeah, we can do that. And they probably can, but you want to be better than the average and you want to think it through because some of the contracts in some of our industries, they have quality assurance check marks that they're going to give you. And you should be like that anyway in business. You should think about, the fact that I want to make sure that we do a good job at this. Because getting the contract is a major, major accomplishment. But performing the contract is your next accomplishment. Because your score, a lot of them don't even score you the way they should, but your score, your performance rating, it could hurt you. Most of the time they don't say anything unless you really mess up bad and your attitude is bad. I tell people, and they say, Michelle, should I give this contract back? I'm just really scared. No, you should not. Let's talk through, the situation. So that's why I try to be very honest with you guys. It's scary. It can be scary the first time, but once you do it, you're on your way. But it gets you to that level where you're fearless. You're like, wow, I did this. Even if it's just a couple $100, even if it's just $50,000, even if you only make $10,000 and it's a short-term contract, even if you only make 5, it's a huge accomplishment. Step 3, I'll tell you a little bit about that, a little bit more before we go to 4. So with step 3, you need to look at the scope of work after you've chosen the contract and you say, let me look at the scope of work, statement of work. You guys are familiar with this. They do, a lot of solicitations have basically the same information, but you say, as you're reading this, you write down your questions because a lot of times they'll give you time to ask questions. And even if they don't, you have the right to ask questions. Now, if they give you a timeline to ask questions, you can't go outside of that timeline. But if they don't give you a timeline, just ask the questions, but write them down. Because what you're trying to figure out is, okay, how would we do this? What does this look like? So I make products and I can win the deal on the products as an example. But now they want me to deliver the products every week to different locations all around the country. I have to say to myself, okay, first of all, how am I going to do that? Am I going to use FedEx? Do I want to hire trucking companies to do this? Well, if I got a bunch of pallets and these pallets are weigh 1,500 and they're stacked on top of each other, and it's just huge because we're talking thousands and thousands of products. So that's what I mean by looking at the business model. Does that mean I need to add another vendor to this process? Okay, so your business model is about how am I going to do this? It's as simple as that. And is it going to cost me more money? Now, part of your business model is you looking at the pricing too. Is it more expensive for me to hire a trucking company, make a deal with them and have them to deliver because they have trucking companies all over the United States? Is it cheaper for me to do that? I know I don't want to be a trucking company. Or is it cheaper for me to make a deal with Federal Express or UPS? So you're kind of mapping out the process. I do that a lot by myself. I map out the process. Okay, so when we get the order, what happens? Who gets the order? That needs to be you. You need to do the same exact thing. Okay, when I get the order after I win, and you will be responsible for creating your own process when it comes to how things should happen. And that matters because when you submit that package, you're not going to you don't have to write a whole dissertation, but you're going to tell them very succinctly how you would do that. Because first of all, you don't want to give them too much information unless they ask for it, but you need to know what's going to happen. You're the expert, not them. And they will depend on you. Okay, so you would build a team around that. Or if you're just a one-man show and you prefer to stay that way, you hire subcontractors. If you are hiring subcontractors to work for you, do not make them employees. That's one of the biggest mistakes, okay? So you build a team. Some of you may prefer to use subcontractors. Sometimes it's easier, but just watch your profit. And the other thing is you have to make sure that you are doing 51% of the work. That doesn't mean you have to do the work of the subcontractor. What it means is that you have to manage these people. That's how you're earning your 51%. Remember what I said? I'm the CEO. I have a job anyway. But if they were to come and somebody wanted to do a set aside because I'm a woman-owned business, they might ask me, well, how much of this work do you do? How are you involved? Well, I'm in sales acquisitions. I do all of the proposals for this. I manage the proposals. The contract administrators report to me. All of that. And it's for this specific project. So if I said, I have my department, I have 2 contract administrators under me, they're managing the project. That's me with my 51%. So the last thing is preparing the bid. You have to put together a proposal. And again, that sounds like a big word, but it's not as bad as it seems, not the way I break it down. And it's a lot easier than it seems, but it looks very intimidating when you see some of these, okay? Now, that's basically it. This just shows you guys a lot of the opportunities that I found. Now we're getting ready to get into the actual work of looking at, I have a whole list of these. There were about 73, that I found, but I did pick out one that I wanted us to look at the scope of work and all of that.